Go.
Okay. So we've gone over stereotypes in the Arabian Nights a little in class already, but I'm going to show you some new materials and reasons that stereotyping is dangerous. So first I'm going to start off with a tribe called the Nasarema. Has anyone heard of this tribe? Okay, so I'm going to summarize the tribe a little bit and then pass out an excerpt from an article about them that I'll read out loud. But basically, they're a tribe whose origin is unknown and whose culture is poorly understood. They're described as an example of the extremes to which human behavior can go, and they're characterized by their magical beliefs and practices, a market economy, and economic pursuits, and then their ritual activities, which they spend most of the day completing. So, their main ritual focuses on the human body. Appearance and health are dominant concerns of the people, and this may seem typical of cultures today, like Ghazal just did a presentation on beauty norms, but the ceremonial aspects of these people are what makes them really unique. So I'm just going to pass out. This take one. Yeah. Okay, so I'll just try to read this kind of quickly, but it's just about the Nasarema people. So the fundamental belief underlying the whole system appears to be that the human body is ugly and that its natural tendency is to debility and disease. Incarcerated in such a body, man's only hope is to avert these characteristics through the use of the powerful influences of ritual and ceremony. Every household has one or more shrines devoted to this purpose. The more powerful individuals in the society have several shrines in their houses, and in fact, the opulence of a house is often referred to in terms of the number of such ritual centers it possesses. Most houses are of wattle and daub construction, but the shrine rooms of the more wealthy are walled with stone. Poorer families imitate the rich by applying pottery plaques to their shrine walls. While each family has at least one such shrine, the rituals associated with it are not family ceremonies, but are private and secret. The focal point of the shrine is a box or chest which is built into the wall. In this chest are kept the many charms and magical potions without which no native believes he could live. These preparations are secured from a variety of specialized practitioners. The most powerful of these are the medicine men, whose assistance must be rewarded with substantial gifts. However, the medicine men do not provide the curative potions for their clients, but decide what the ingredients should be and then write them down in an ancient and secret language. This writing is understood only by the medicine men and by the herbalists who, for another gift, provide the required charm. Beneath the charm box is a small font. Each day, every member of the family in succession enters the shrine room, bows his head before the charm box, mingles different sorts of holy water in the font, and proceeds with a brief rite of ablution. The holy waters are secured from the water temple of the community, where the priests conduct elaborate ceremonies to make the liquid ritually pure. In the hierarchy of magical practitioners and below the medicine men and prestige are specialists whose designation is best translated holy mouth men. The Nasarema have an almost pathological horror of and fascination with the mouth, the condition of which is believed to have a supernatural influence on all social relationships. Were it not for the rituals of the mouth, they believe that their teeth would fall out, their gums bleed, their jaws shrink, their friends desert them, and their lovers reject them. The daily body ritual performed by everyone includes a mouth rite. Despite the fact that these people are so punctilious about care of the mouth, this rite involves a practice which strikes the uninitiated stranger as revolting. It was reported to me that the ritual consists of inserting a small bundle of hog hairs into the mouth along with certain magical powders, and then moving the bundle in a highly formalized series of gestures. It is to be hoped that when a thorough study of the Nasarema is made, there will be careful inquiry into the personality structure of these people. One has but to watch the gleam in the eye of a holy mouth man as he jabs an awl into an exposed nerve, to suspect that a certain amount of sadism is involved. If this can be established, a very interesting pattern emerges, for most of the population shows definite masochistic tendencies. It was to these that Professor Linton referred in discussing a distinctive part of the daily body ritual, which is performed only by men. This part of the rite involves scraping and lacerating the surface of the face with a sharp instrument. So I know that was kind of long, I'm sorry. But what does anyone have like initial thoughts on what this tribe of people is like? I kind of thought they were like crazy and self-absorbed and a little stupid when I first read it. But the catch of the article is that it's actually describing American people. So if you spell Nasarema backwards, it actually spells American. You see that? And then like throughout the article, the shrines or ritual rooms are what we consider bathrooms. The box built into the wall of shrines are medicine cabinets. The charms and magical potions are just medicine. The medicine men are doctors. The herbalists are pharmacists, and the font containing holy water is the sink that we wash our faces in. And then the holy mouth men are dentists. The rituals of the mouth are just when we brush our teeth, and then the scraping of the face that the men do is just shaving. But the story is meant to be a tool to study the American culture as though we have never experienced it or been a part of it. One who is unfamiliar with the American way of life may view our rituals as strange and unnecessary if they didn't get more information and find out why we do things like that. This story shows how dangerous stereotyping can be. If this was the only story someone had read about my culture, they might think that I'm crazy and that I only care about my appearance. So it's important to remember this story when reading the Arabian Nights and discussing the Middle East in general. Like we talked about before, we can't believe the media's portrayal of people from the Middle East. Edward Said talked a lot about that issue in his interview. But similarly, there are stereotypes within the stories of the Arabian Nights. I'm mainly just going to talk about the role of gender in regards to the Nights, but there are obviously many more. But stereotypes of women are seen as seductive. For example, Shahrazad is attempting to seduce Shahryar through the use of storytelling. They're also seen as sex objects. Shahryar marries a different girl every night and then kills her the next morning because he's mad that his wife cheated on him, so he's basically using them to marry them and then sleep with them and kill them. They're known as, women are seen as disobedient wives. Both Shahryar and his brother were cheated on by their wives, which kind of causes the whole domino effect, which leads to the stories. And women are also seen as having no rights. The tale of the merchant and his wife, when the merchant can hear the language of the animals and laughs at something one of the animals says, and his wife doesn't know what he's laughing at and demands that he tell her, but he can't tell her because he'll get killed if anyone finds out his secret. So he beats her until she gives up, taking away her rights. And women are also seen as very jealous in the Nights. Like, for example, in the Jewish physician's tale of the young man from Mosul and the murdered girl, which acted out on Monday. And then men are seen as very powerful. Many of the men portrayed in the Nights are kings, viziers, or have other positions of power. And the rulers in the stories basically own the land and the people that they rule. They're also seen as very vengeful and angry, so back to Shahryar marrying a woman and killing her every night. He's just avenging his cheating wife and taking it out on innocent people. So if we just read one story from the Arabian Nights, the story probably wouldn't make sense without the context of the whole book. Similarly, it wouldn't make sense to judge a whole group of people based on just one story that you've read about them or one experience that you've had with them. So just to end, I'm going to play a clip from this TED Talks of a girl from Africa who describes the danger of a single story from her own experience.
If you have lights in the desktop,
Do what?
can you download it and desktop or open it from
Oh yeah.
I come from a conventional middle-class Nigerian family. My father was a professor. My mother was an administrator. And so we had, as was the norm, living domestic help who would often come from nearby rural villages. So the year I turned 8, we got a new houseboy. His name was Fide. The only thing my mother told us about him was that his family was very poor. My mother sent yams and rice and our old clothes to his family. And when I didn't finish my dinner, my mother would say, "Finish your food. People like Fide's family have nothing." So I felt enormous pity for Fide's family. Then one Saturday, we went to his village to visit. And his mother showed us a beautifully patterned basket made of dyed raffia that his brother had made. I was startled. It had not occurred to me that anybody in his family could actually make something. All I had heard about them was how poor they were, so that it had become impossible for me to see them as anything else but poor. Their poverty was my single story of them. Years later, I thought about this when I left Nigeria to go to university in the United States. I was 19. My American roommate was shocked by me. She asked where I had learned to speak English so well, and was confused when I said that Nigeria happened to have English as its official language. She asked if she could listen to what she called my tribal music, and was consequently very disappointed when I produced my tape of Mariah Carey. She assumed that I did not know how to use a stove. What struck me was this: she had felt sorry for me even before she saw me. Her default position toward me, as an African, was a kind of patronizing, well-meaning pity. My roommate had a single story of Africa, a single story of catastrophe. In this single story, there was no possibility of Africans being similar to her in any way, no possibility of feelings more complex than pity, no possibility of a connection as human equals. I must say that before I went to the US, I didn't consciously identify as African. But in the US, whenever Africa came up, people turned to me, never mind that I knew nothing about places like Namibia. But I did come to embrace this new identity, and in many ways I think of myself now as African, although I still get quite irritable when Africa is referred to as a country, the most recent example being my otherwise wonderful flight to Lagos 2 days ago, in which there was an announcement on the Virgin flight about their charity walk in India, Africa, and other countries. So after I had spent some years in the US as an African, I began to understand my roommate's response to me. If I had not grown up in Nigeria, and if all I knew about Africa were from popular images, I too would think that Africa was a place of beautiful landscapes, beautiful animals, and incomprehensible people fighting senseless wars, dying of poverty and AIDS, unable to speak for themselves, and waiting to be saved by a kind white foreigner. I would see Africans in the same way that I, as a child, had seen Fide's family. This single story of Africa ultimately comes, I think, from Western literature. And here's a quote from the writing of a London merchant called John Locke, who sailed to West Africa in 1561 and kept a fascinating account of his voyage. After referring to the black Africans as beasts who have no houses, he writes, "They are also people without heads, having their mouths and eyes in their breasts." Now, I've laughed every time I've read this, and one must admire the imagination of John Locke. But what is important about his writing is that it represents the beginning of a tradition of telling African stories in the West, a tradition of sub-Saharan Africa as a place of negatives, of difference, of darkness, of people who, in the words of the wonderful poet Rudyard Kipling, are half devil, half child. And so I began to realize that my American roommate must have, throughout her life, seen and heard different versions of this single story.
Alright, that's it. Just an example of the harm a single story can do, and stereotypes.